trophy plants and not sure why? With all the LED lights on the market, you're not sure which one is the best and what even to look for. We're going to dive into that in this conversation and more. So grab your smoking apparatus and let's dive in with Shane from Migro Life. With all the new AI technology on the market, what works and what doesn't? We're going to dive in. So let's buckle up and enjoy the ride as we dive into DLI, power charts, and much more with Shane from Migro Light. Good evening, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you're at in this beautiful planet. But I have the pleasure and the opportunity this morning, my time, evening his time, or afternoon, to speak with Shane from Migro Light. Welcome to the Organically Blunt Show, Shane.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be on.
Definitely. So I want to dive kind of into the history of who you are to start off, and how did you get into studying lights and just into it as a whole? And could you give everybody a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the owner of a company called Migro, making LED lighting. I started it about 9 years ago, 2016, 8 years ago. And I started when LED grow lighting was in its infancy, and started from a place where I was DIYing lights actually first before I started the company. I was growing for probably about 10, 12 years up to that point. And been growing at home in the attic, 600 watt HPS, digital, and just doing 4 or 6 plants for myself. And because I was in the attic, I was having lots of problems with heat, especially in the summer. And so heard about these LED lights and started playing with them, doing DIY at home, making my own little kits, and learning off people on the internet, all that stuff. And then the job I was in, I got redundancy in 2015. So I got laid off, got a little bit of money from it. And after working corporate for a long time and not exactly loving it, I decided to set up my own thing. And I just saw lighting as a way of starting up my own business and sort of combining my manufacturing experience. I'm an engineer with my growing experience. And so we're 8, 9 years later, 3 or 4 different generations of LED lights I've gone through in terms of my own company. And here we are. They're everywhere now.
Definitely. I hope I tagged the right Instagram on here this morning. I did tag just the name, but when I messaged them this morning just to see if it was you or not on Instagram, they were like, you're gonna have to reach out to Shane. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna be on the show in an hour. So okay, have a good day. I think I must have caught your representative or whoever's.
It probably was, yeah. We got a guy who looks after the messaging and all the customer service stuff, so he was probably talking to you, yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So, like I explained prior to the show, we have a lot of new people that are newer to LEDs. We do still have a lot of people that are up in this area that are still growing with HPS, believe it or not. And I see the units on Facebook Marketplace where people are trying to get rid of these things on a daily basis, and some people think they have a gold mine because they paid so much in the past for this lighting. But has lighting costs, I know this is an off-track question from what I sent you, but do you feel that LED lighting has came to a more budget-friendly price point nowadays compared to where it started?
Oh yeah. So if you take that 600 HPS setup that I had, 10 years ago, if you buy that today, you could probably buy, a serviceable, an okay 600 watt HPS bulb, digital ballast and reflector for minimum, probably what, $150, maybe $150, $200, that kind of price. and that would get you going in a 4x4 grow. And yeah, you get a good yield from that. But LEDs now are about twice as efficient as HPS. So you need about half the wattage. And for an LED light, so say if you wanted to match your HPS, for an LED light to match it, you'd need about 300 watts. And LED lighting is in and around about $1 a watt now at the moment. So you're talking about $300 for that LED fixture. So you're paying twice as much. So it's a considerable amount more. However, if you think about the running costs, so I think in the US it varies a lot state to state, but I think it's about 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you got a 600 watt HPS on for say 12 hours, you're running 650 watts or thereabouts for 12 hours. That's about 8 kilowatts over a day. So you're talking about $1.60 over a day just for electricity. It doesn't sound like much, but you do that for 365 days of the year. And you're into $500-600 a year in electricity cost for your HPS. So you can half that with your LED light. So you can save $300 a year with your LED light, having spent 150 more to start with. So pretty much after 6 months, you're making money back. And every year after that, you'll be making back another $300 for running with LEDs. So at this stage, with electricity prices where they are, LED prices have got more, or LED lights have got more efficient and they've got cheaper. And HPS has stayed the same. It hasn't improved one bit in the last 10 years and hasn't really got any cheaper because they were always pretty cheap. So yeah, in my view, it's a no-brainer. People say it's too expensive for LEDs. Well, I argue it's exactly the opposite. It's too expensive to buy HPS unless you're getting free electricity, in which case you just may not care. But anyone plugging in at home, LEDs are the way to go. No question.
Absolutely. And the way I've seen it, I've ran both in my history. I've been a grower since 2009 myself. And, I started out with, as embarrassing it is to say this, I started out with CFL bulbs. And I went from that. I created what they call a space bucket. Um, and I
Oh, I
created that.
know those. Yeah, like the upside down thing in the bucket, yeah.
Kind of like that. Mine's a little bit different. Mine kind of incorporated the self-watering, self-wicking bases that you see on the market nowadays with basically I use the bucket as a grow tent. I even had an active intake and an active exhaust. It was all done and with quality parts. I still got them in my shed and I'm getting ready to clean that out. And I thought to myself yesterday, I said, man, I've got these UFO lights that are blurpos, old school, like beginning LEDs. And should I hold on to these or should I toss them? I keep saying to myself, like they worked great for what they did back in the day, but they're nothing compared to what I got today, and then I kind of went from that to a T5 8 bulb. And then I was lucky and I started the channel right after a few years of using that, as bad as it sounds. And I got into LED. But I did have some HPS units back in the day that I tried out, but the heat was my biggest problem. And, obviously LEDs don't put off as much heat, if any at all, hardly. And I guess my question is, there's a lot of lingo in the industry that some of these people might not understand that I kind of want to dive into. And one of them that's kind of been going around the community lately is Intra-Canopy lighting. Can you kind of touch on that and what your thoughts on that is?
Yeah, so typically, we've got our grow tent walls, got the bottom and the top. We hang our light from the top and the plants grow up from the bottom and a little bit like the sun would be in midday. And so our plant canopy, the way I tried to explain it, becomes like a solar panel. It spreads out so those leaves cover the surface area of the tent and rise up as the plant grows. And they absorb all those photons, all that light, all the photons of light coming down from that grow light onto the plant. Now, there's an argument that there are leaves underneath that top surface. So just to be clear, like after that first leaf, very few little light is getting through that into those lower leaves in the canopy. Really, those upper leaves are absorbing, 95% of that light. There's a little bit sort of gets through and bounces down through the canopy, but it's minimal. Well, the argument is that those other leaves, which do exist underneath the canopy, are wasted, and we could increase the productivity of the plant by putting other lamps down the middle or underneath or on the sides of those plants, and basically shine them in and up at the plant to improve the amount of photosynthesis happening and the amount of growth, and therefore increase yield. This is nothing new. In certainly in greenhouses, they were dropping HPS bulbs on a wire and hanging them in the
Wow.
middle of the greenhouse,
Mhm.
in between, say, tomato plants, just to boost the amount of light into the lower parts of the plants. And they were doing that decades ago. So this is nothing new. In the cannabis world, it's something seen as a little bit more. People think it's sort of some sort of innovation. Well, it's not, but it's a new application, I suppose. And I started seeing those lights in the shows the last couple of years. And the short story is that if you have a lot of light intensity at the top, the plant can only absorb so much light. And if you start putting extra fixtures underneath, there's a limit to the amount the whole plant can absorb. And you're just going to waste that extra light. But if you're somewhere underneath that limit, then adding extra lights below should complement the ones above and should increase your plant productivity. So yeah, they are worthwhile. Not in all cases. If you've got very high light intensity, probably not worth it. But yeah, they definitely work.
That is awesome, definitely. And I'm not necessarily doing the questions I sent over to you in order, but I kind of want to make them flow with everything we're talking about here. So, you say there's a limit to the lighting and stuff. Now, for the people out there that might not know, correct me if I'm wrong, but the measurement for that leveling of where it should be is called par, correct?
Yeah, it's called PAR. So if you think about, for humans, people may have heard of a measurement called lux or lumens. So lumens being the amount that's coming out of a light bulb that we can see. So it's a measurement of how bright the light is to our eyes. And for plants, it's the very similar wavelengths of light or colors of light. So it's blue, green, and red coming from the lamps. That's the wavelengths of light that the plant absorbs. Down on that spectrum of wavelengths, down below blue, it goes into UV, which that's the one that can burn your skin or bleach clothes or whatever. That has some effect on plants, but it doesn't grow as effectively and can damage them. And you go the other direction, that's into infrared, and then far red, which is basically heat radiation. And again, so at either ends of those spectrum, there are photons and there are wavelengths of radiation, but they're not going to contribute to plant growth. So PAR, it's called photosynthetically active radiation. And all it means is it's the radiation coming from a light source that causes photosynthesis, causes plants to grow, as opposed to those other wavelengths that don't, the UV and the far red. So when we talk about intensity, we're talking about PAR intensity, and it's just numbers, So I could say, for example, if you go back to that setup I was referring to earlier with the 600 watt HPS in a 4x4, that would have delivered an average of about 500 PAR, for example.
Okay.
And so that was what was considered was a good level. Now, just to give you an example, sunlight outdoors, midday sun in summer, will be 2000 par. Okay,
Wow.
2000 micromoles. So the plants can withstand or absorb very high light. However, they can't do very high intensity for very long. There is sort of a maximum they can do per day. You think about ourselves, we go out into the sun. After a while, we've had enough. We want to go back indoors in the shade. Well, plants can get stressed in the sun too. But these days, the benefits of LEDs is because they're not generating as much heat, we can put more light intensity into that 4x4 without basically burning the tent down. I remember back in the day, I put 1,000 watt HPS into that 4x4 at one stage, and it was impossible. You needed a whirlwind of air going through that tent just to extract the heat. And the amount of radiated heat, you could feel that radiated heat on your sun that comes from the HPS bulbs. It was just burning everything up. It was just sizzling those top leaves. But now, because we've got LEDs that don't emit that radiated heat and don't radiate as much heat overall into the tent, people have started really pushing that now. So commercial growers in the US, the sort of standard target average power would be 1,400 now. So they're really, really pushing the productivity you can get out per square foot or for your tent size much higher than it ever was previously. So, you really improve the amount of yield you can get from the same space.
Okay, definitely. And that ties me into my next question. And I know there's a way to measure this is typically with a power meter. And last I knew, I've never priced one personally. I knew they were quite expensive to get your hands on a unit that works correctly. And is there a way for people that are newer into growing to get that chance to experience measuring their power in their grow environment on a budget friendly side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Use a smartphone. So there's two apps on the market. One's called PPFD app, and the other one's called the Photon app. Now, the Photon app is pretty much all for iPhones. PPFD works on both. And both these apps work particularly well on iPhones. The reason is the forward-facing camera that you use for to read the light intensity is the same specification on all the iPhones. So the sensitivity is the same. So these guys can calibrate them really accurately. The sensors tend to vary a little bit on Androids, so it's not as easy. Depends on the model of Android you're using, basically. But I did a test recently. It's published on my website, migrolight.com, where I tested both of those apps. Now, there is a little trick to it. So if you take your smartphone and you got what can I see? Yeah, the little camera in the top here, little forward-facing camera. You get a piece of printer paper. So just a standard piece of white paper that you get out of a printer. You can use other paper, but it's more accurate if you can get that type of paper. And you cut a little strip, and you put that little strip over the top of your phone here, and it acts as what's called a diffuser and gives a more accurate measurement. But by simply sellotaping or taping a little bit of paper over your phone, download the apps. They're both free. You can then measure power pretty accurately. So I'd say definitely within 10%. With the iPhones, within 5% accuracy. And that's for any spectrum. So I tested with under LED, under high pressure sodium, and under those red blue blurple lights. And under each one, it was accurate enough for you to get a good sense of what sort of power intensity you're getting in your grow tent.
Definitely. I had I call it a customer. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to say customer, but a fan here in the community chat. Some of these people are looking for lights for like a 2x2 or a 4x4 or even a 5x5, which is common. That's what I use myself. If I was in the market to getting a new light, what would you recommend that somebody look for? Is there a couple things they should keep their eye out for so they're not wasting their money? Because, you type in LED light on Amazon, for example, that's where everybody goes typically nowadays. And there's so much, and there's, I hate to put it this way, but there is a lot of junk out there too. And um, how can you make sure that somebody ain't gonna buy a unit they're gonna regret? So is there any
Sure.
tips you have for somebody new?
Yeah, well, like from Amazon perspective, I sell on Amazon, right? So I'm dissing myself here as well, but like the general quality of the stuff on Amazon is pretty poor. Um, I would tend to advise people to go somewhere, in the US, go to maybe LED Grow Lights Depot, or one of these stores that have a collection of different brands. They're not just forcing one brand on you or one type, but they know that they work well, and they know they've got a decent standard of quality and service. Um, you need to target um, in and around $1 per watt in terms of price for those lights. So that could be, for the bigger lights, it's a little bit less than $1 per watt. They're a little bit cheaper per watt. And for the smaller lights, a little bit more. But for your five by five, for example, um, you've got about 25 square feet there. You should be targeting about 30 watts per square foot. So if that's in a 2 foot in a 2 by 2, you're doing a small little row, you got 4 square feet, it should be about 4 by 30 watts, so about 120 watts. So getting the right wattage, and that would be delivering somewhere in the region of about 8 to 900 power. So it's up at the high end. I often say to people, it's a bit like driving a Ferrari, or a race car. You push up to that above like 1,000 micromos, 1,000 power. You got to have everything else on point. You're in danger of stressing the plants. You're pushing them quite hard. For the home grower, I usually say about 8 or 900 micromoles, or 800 or 900 power, and that's about 30 watts per square foot. Next thing is spectrum. So the color of light that's coming from the grow lights. And I would say that you don't really need to worry about that at all. So most LED grow lights these days, they're using white LEDs with, you'll see the little red diodes in there as well.
Yep.
And that combination is what's called full spectrum, and means the plants will grow healthily all the way from a seedling up to harvest time under those lights, no problem at all. There's a lot of marketing and questionable science around variable spectrums and special diodes and all that stuff. My own view, I've been doing this for a long time, been growing for a long time. It's rubbish, it's junk, it's nonsense. It's people just trying to market and sell you stuff. So all you really need is a white light. So once you can, it looks white. Just buy. Don't worry about spectrum. It's you don't need variable spectrum. You don't need to be able to tune in the spectrum. In fact, interestingly, when I put out posts, I put one out yesterday about a light I'm testing, asking people, because they had these supplementary bars, UV and deep red and far red, and I asked people, what would you do with these? And I didn't get one coherent answer back about when you'd use them or how you'd use them, because nobody knows, because there is no real benefit to them. Just give the plants lots of even light spread over the canopy, and enough light, and you're set to go. You don't need to worry about anything else. And last, really, it's about quality and service. So a bit like anything else, we could be talking about cars here, and with an automobile, you're looking at two cars, they got the same engine size, the same horsepower, the same miles per gallon. How are you going to decide? Well, the way it looks, maybe you think one is a bit sexier than the other, but often it's going to be what you heard from somebody else about that brand. So whether it's a Toyota or a Chevy or whatever, you're going to have a knowledge bank of experience from other people telling you, oh, they always break down, or they're very good, or had to get service there and they ripped me off or whatever. And it's the same with grow lights. Just go onto the forums, look at the independent reviews of the lights before you buy, just to make sure that they're not scammers, basically, that are going to be selling you something which they won't back up and won't support. because they're pretty reliable now these days. There were problems earlier on, but they're pretty reliable now. You're not likely to have a problem. But if you do, it's a fairly big chunk of money. And if something goes wrong, you want to know that they're going to stand by it. So, look for the warranty and do a quick search on whichever company it is and just service. And there's loads of forums out there, and people will be very quick to tell you.
Definitely. And that dives me into basically, I've got two more questions for you regarding lighting before we dive into just some things about you. And my next question being, AI is like, just in this past year, I've seen it be all the hype on all levels of everything. And, it is what I call today's new technology that is basically breaking waves everywhere, especially here in the United States. How is AI being incorporated with these LED grow lights nowadays, and what are some of the things they're doing with them?
Yeah, it hasn't really been used yet for grow lighting, and the reason is lighting is very simple. As I said earlier on, you get your light, you hang it over your plants, you switch it on and off with a timer, and that's really all you need to do. There's, you're gonna raise and lower it a little bit as the plants grow, but that's all you're really going to do. They're not a complicated, complex item. I'm sure there will people that will try and make them complicated and come up with all sorts of marketing stunts to try and convince you that there's advantages to buying more expensive techie gear than your kind of standard lamps. But I'm fairly convinced that there's no research out there at the moment that suggests that it's worthwhile doing that. There is a possibility that you might get some sort of AI camera technology which will be able to scan the canopy and give you an indication, for example, of how well spread your light intensity is, or is there any deficiencies nutrient wise showing up in the leaves, or any signs of stress or light burn or some of those sort of things. So I'm fairly convinced camera technology, which may be incorporated into light fixtures at some stage, or certainly it'll be hanging off them, that I think that will come into effect. But I do know at the moment that some of those things exist already. You can just take a photo of your leaves if you're having issues, and there are apps which will scan those photographs and tell you, what the problem is. Even down to, I did it the other day. We've got a little grow garden in our showroom here, and we just grow chilies and pepper plants and other stuff like that. We don't have any weed in our showroom because it's still illegal here in Ireland. But we had some infestation, so I was able to take a picture of these bugs with my phone. I put it into GPT, and it told me exactly what it was, identified what it was, and told me how I should treat it. So that's pretty handy. I guess when we were starting back in the noughties, all I had was a book and a few
Yep.
friends that I could call. It was like I had one guy that was like my mentor, who kind of took me on and guided me through the first year or two just to make sure I was doing the right things. But I had Jorge Cervantes' book, and that was the only thing I had, and that was all that was available. So people don't realize how good they have it now.
Definitely. Jorge is a good friend of mine. I've known him since the beginning of our show. He actually used to do our intro voiceover for the show back in the day. And I know exactly what book you're talking about because I had the same one. And like a dingbat, I loaned it to a buddy that was getting into starting, and he never returned it. Me and Jorge talked about that. I'm like, I need to buy one of them. He's like, oh, that's a little dated compared to my latest one. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a thought of it. That's where I began my knowledge. So,
Yeah.
it's a great sidekick, I guess you'd call it, for when you're getting started. For referencing, and that leads me to my final question with you, as far as lighting and everything goes. You say you test a lot of these on your channel. Where can people find you, first off, on YouTube? And second off, can does it get pretty in depth, or is some of this stuff information that, like I said, I work with a lot of beginners that they could absorb and understand off your channel, or is it more geared towards the intermediate or professional?
It's a little bit of both. So the channel on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, it's called Migro, Migro, hashtag Migro Light. You type that into any search engine and I'll pop up everywhere, so you won't miss me. And on the channel, I've been testing and reviewing grow lights, my own, ones I've bought. And then in the last 3-4 years, a lot of other companies send me their lights to test and show basically to the world. And what I do is I take the lights, I hang them up, check them out, I test them. So we were talking about earlier about that power readings. I hang them up. So say the light's designed for a 4x4. I'll put it into a 4 foot by 4 foot test area with reflective walls simulating a grow tent. I'll hang the light up at whatever 18 inches its recommended hanging height. And then I take measurements of the power intensity in a grid across the test area, the 4 foot by 4 foot test area, and I show it in numbers. So in numbers and sort of colors. So you can see how high the intensity of the light spread is and how even the spread is. And then I look at the spectrum of the light, and then I'll talk about any other features, so it could have an app or Bluetooth connectivity or dimming or whatever the other features are. And like I'm an engineer, so I'm a bit techie, but I've also been doing it for a long time. So I know hopefully how to communicate reasonably clearly and not sort of go over people's heads. And, I think the count it's well over 200 lights anyway at this stage anyway. So,
Wow.
I've seen a lot of them. And so I can make a judgment pretty quickly. And the other thing is, it doesn't happen so much these days because the quality of lights have got much better, but I don't test and show a light that's no good. If it's a bad quality light, somebody sends it to me, I just send it back or bin it. I'm not going to show junk on my channel. So if I've shown it, it's a light that's at least good enough to buy. You may think it's too expensive, or it may not be the one that suits you or whatever. But certainly I've judged it in my experience to be of good enough quality to show and present to people on the channel. So it's a little bit of assurance for you that the light is a reasonably good quality product. So yeah, and then I go into a lot of other stuff on the channels around how to set your lights up. A lot of the conversations we've had now about intra-canopy lighting, about environment control, about all those sort of things, I go into reasonable depth in those topics and try to be as helpful as possible to people in understanding how to set up your grow light, how to buy and set up your grow light to get the best yield possible in your situation.
That's awesome. I will have to reach off camera with you about an upcoming project I have with a light company that just came into the US market. I won't release the name or any information on camera right now because we're going to be doing some future stuff with it, but I would like to get some ideas from you on how we can come up with a way to present some quality test results on a beginner standard, so I can relay it to my audience and show them exactly what this light is capable of. But, that dives me into the questions about you as a person. Now, I understand that cannabis is not to the legal or regulatory side of things in Ireland, but I'm sure, well, we've all tried it. And that dives me into my first question about you as a person. And I ask all my guests this, and that is, if you have tried it and consumed it, when was the first time? How old were you? And where'd you get it from?
Okay, so this is a really I'll keep it short, but my first time is a really good story. I was 16 years old. In Europe, kids do a thing called Erasmus. So that's where students travel at a young age to different countries and learn, stay with another family and learn English or learn German or whatever in school in another country. And I got great friends with a German guy who came to Dublin, and so good friends that when he went back that summer back to his own back to Berlin, I traveled back with him, and I spent the summer
Wow.
with him in Germany. This is at 16. Can you imagine?
Oh,
It's
wow.
just mind blowing. And it got better because I ended up going to a Rolling Stones concert in the Brandenburg Gate, where the old the wall was, at the center of Berlin.
Wow.
And about halfway through the concert, I'd never seen weed before. I'd never seen hash before. I didn't even know what it was. And there was a load of bikers standing beside me, and they were there's kind of this commotion, they were getting upset about something. And I asked what was going on, and they said, "Oh, this guy, he's dropped his hash." And I didn't even know what he was talking about. And then I felt something underneath my shoe, this big lump, and it was about a quarter ounce of hash that this guy had lost. And I was like, it was brown and it just looked like dirt, whatever. But I, smelled it. It's like, "Oh." So I said to the guy, "Is this yours?" And they were like, "Yay!" It's like I was their hero. And so they rolled me a big joint and got me to smoke it. So that was great, except for about 40 minutes later, I had to leave because I got sick everywhere.
Oh, no.
So I didn't even know what I was doing. But so that was my first time. But back in Dublin in my late teens, I tried booze and alcohol. I didn't really like it. I didn't have great experiences with it. And so I smoked instead. So that's why I smoked from a young age. It was like something that I could do socially, where I didn't have to, basically take alcohol and feel horrible and, all that stuff. So I smoked from about 17. Um, Pretty heavily, not hugely heavily, because we really just had hash then. There wasn't much weed in Ireland. We just got a hash from like North Africa and stuff. And then I'd say it would have been, I think it was about 2003. So what age was I then? I was about 30. And the I started hearing about growing your own, and would have had a little bit of weed at that stage. But again, the weed it wasn't nothing like it was today. It was good, but I still probably preferred good Moroccan hash or whatever to the weed that I would get. And then I started growing my own, and it was back in the day where you had to separate the males and the females and do all that stuff, and didn't know what you were growing, didn't know. I had a year and a half of basically disaster after disaster, and finally got there though. And I have to say, I got pretty good, in my little space. And my 4x4, what was I pulling? I think I would have pulled. So I remember it in jars because I had these big glass sealed jars, it was a great yield if I got about over 4 jars. If I got filled 4 or 5 jars, and they would have held about 3 ounces each. So I would have got about 12 to 14 ounces out of a 4x4 with a
Wow.
60-watt HPS. Yeah. Yeah, no, I got good, but it's, the engineer in me, I just sort of, kept on tweaking and twiddling and that sort of thing. And then I switched to LED, kept going. I stopped growing at home about 5 years ago now, just before COVID, because I have two teenage boys. And, for moral authority reasons, I couldn't be growing in the house because just not with teenage boys. So I've stopped growing at home. I still get weed from friends now, but again, compared to what I used to, it horrifies me now just to think about what I used to smoke. To be honest, because I used to smoke way more than was healthy. But I smoke. I probably in the weekdays. If I am smoking weekdays, I probably smoke 2 little pinner joints in the evening time when the kids are gone to bed or close to that, it'd be late in the evening. I now don't like smoke going out. So if I'm socializing, I don't smoke anymore. I don't like to be stoned when I'm out socializing.
Sure.
But yeah, in the evening time, late at night, a nice, I like a nice heavy, strong weed. It's gonna knock me into bed as quickly as
Definitely.
possible. And then if I'm out and about, I do edibles now. So if I'm going to gigs or concerts, which is my thing, I love music, so I go to a lot of live music. I eat edibles now, and I fucking love them, because my hangover, I just can't do hangovers very well anymore. It's just too punishing. And
Oh,
I just find edibles great because you can go out, you can have a few beers, you can have a great time. It's great for music or shrooms, maybe a little bit of shrooms. And it's not totally pain free the next day, but it's close to, so yeah, that's where I am.
yeah, I think we can relate a lot on that. I haven't touched alcohol in, oh, how long has it been here? About 18 years now. And
Wow.
yeah, I'll be 40 this year, and I stopped alcohol at the age of 23. So going on 18 years. I didn't like that same feeling. I didn't like the hangovers. I didn't like feeling sick the next day. It just wasn't my thing. But, you know, you say you like music and stuff like that. One thing that I can relate to you guys on is I'm a photographer. I do a lot of local events too. And we have what is called the Michigan International Irish Music Festival. And
Wow.
that is coming up in September here. I think the third week of September, and this thing, like, it brings in on a yearly basis roughly about 30 to 70,000 people.
Wow. Wow.
And we have people from Ireland coming. We have people from all over the world that play bagpipes and standard kilts and Ireland music. And I'm not one that knows a lot about it. I'm just a photographer, but um, you know, I do enjoy it, and it is a great family event, and the music is really uplifting, so it's kind of cool. Definitely, we get to experience that here because I'm in the United States in Michigan, so we don't get a lot of that here, but on a daily basis. So for us, it's kind of like if we were to send one of our artists over there to play for you guys. So it's amazing. Like, it is probably the cleanest event I've ever been to in my life. They put up these massive tents, and then they pump air conditioning into these tents, and they put uh I want to say it's bamboo, but I'm not sure. Like bamboo flooring in all the tents. So you're not walking on the grass, you're not getting all dirty. They have indoor air conditioned bathrooms that they set up. And this is all takes place in a field. And it's amazing. I mean, it's kind of cool how they do that. But I kind of fell in love with the bagpipe music. I kind of like how the art of it is. And I love that you touched on you like music. So that dives me into my question that I ask everybody here, and that being, and there is a rule to this question. This is what makes our show organically blunt. The one rule I ask is don't think too hard. The first thought that pops in your head, just blurt it out. So with that being said, if you could smoke with anybody dead or alive, who would it be and why?
David Bowie.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes.
There's a lot of celebrity fandom culture goes around, and a lot of it, I think, is misplaced. It isn't due. But David Bowie from childhood was my hero, for everything.
Definitely.
Musically, artistically, he's just the coolest person that ever lived, in my view. So if I could sit down and smoke a joint with David Bowie, I'd die a happy man. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I'd love to join you because I look up to him for his music. I don't know much other than his music, I'll be honest, but his music is definitely touching on
Mm-hmm.
different levels. So, yeah. So, before I get you off the horn here, where can everybody find you once again and connect with you? And is there anything you want us to know that we might have missed?
Um, yeah. So, like, if you're into your grow lighting, or you want to get into it, or you want to understand it a little bit better, I think my channels are probably I've got the most content around there around that particular topic, and I hope that the blog posts, the video posts, the Instagram stuff, all that. I try not to put anything out unless it's interesting and useful to people. So just I don't put out bland marketing stuff, promotional stuff. I try to put out stuff that's interesting. So if you're interested, you can follow it. As I said, it's Migro, Migro. You type just that in, it should come up. You get to the website, or if your favorite thing is YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you just go in there, you'll find it. You'll see all the links to the other places. Lots of blog posts that I spent a good bit of time on trying to make them as understandable and as useful as possible about, again, all those things, all those questions that people ask me all the time. I try to answer as well as possible. So, what size light do I need for my grow area? Which spectrum should I choose? How many watts? All these simple questions, I try to answer them as well as possible, as directly as possible, and without a lot of flapping around, messing around. I pretty much get straight to the point. The engineer in me. In terms of what would I like people to know? Yeah, like I do sell my own lights, I suppose. That's it. A bit of self promotion. So yeah, I do. I have my own brand. I make my own lights. I've been making them myself since 2015, 2014. They are what I think is that good point of good value and good performance. So they're not the very highest performing lights, because that costs quite a lot of money. So I try to balance off doing really good performance and really good reliability for a good price, and deliver it up with good service. Not a huge company, so we're very reachable. It's me and a few other guys here. And yeah, if you want a light, check them out. The current series I do, so I'm in like my 4th generation now of lights, is the Migro Array series. So they're a bar type light, in my view, they're one of the best out there in terms of bang for buck. You can't go too far wrong.
That's awesome, definitely. And now I do have to ask one question that some people might ask. Being that you're in Ireland, obviously you got your own light brand, like you just stated. Do you do international shipping?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay.
So the customer service and the logistics and the warehousing, it's based in the US.
Okay.
It's based in Europe and the US, and then in Australia and New Zealand. So
Wow.
If you buy in the US, it's shipped from a warehouse within the US. There's no additional charges or fees. Shipping is free. So yeah, and we do an online replacement or a repair service. So if the small chance that there is something gone wrong or you have a problem, you just need to message us, send us a picture. We'll verify if there's a problem online. We're not asking you to send it back. We won't make you wait. We'll get on it straight away. We answer all messages within the working day, or by next working day if it's overnight. And we'll be quick and responsive. I pride myself on it. I like doing a good job, and I like delivering a good service and making people happy. So we do.
Definitely. Well, I value your values already. This was an absolute pleasure. Very informative chat today. And I appreciate you coming on the Organically Blunt show. And we'll make sure that we tag your channel in the show notes after the show so everybody knows where to find you. And we look forward to doing future conversations with you. You're always welcome back here on the Organically Blunt show. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, Shane. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Have a good day. Bye-bye. As we close this chapter of Organically Blunt, immense gratitude to our exceptional partners who fuel our growth journey. Seedsman Genetics, the seasoned seed bank with over 2 decades of experience. Grow Bag, your trusted storage solution to protect terps. Gorilla Grow Tent, crafting spaces for cultivating dreams. Kind LEDs, illuminating your green haven. Country Roots Soil and Amendments, nurturing roots for success. Atlas Seeds, a source of pure genetic treasures. Green Wolf Genetics, creators of botanic magic. Smoke and Stork Genetics, where passion meets potency. Humboldt Seed Company, committed to cultivating excellence. Extreme Gardening, elevating your gardening game. Rain Science Grow Bags, redefining plants' homes. 420 Fast Buds, pioneers of fast and furious growth. Captain Redbeard Seeds, sailing the seas of genetic innovation. Aero Mixer, the rheumatic heartbeat of your grow. Petra Tools, your trusted garden companions. SoFem Genetics, sowing seeds of FEMS and Build-A-Soil, building the foundation of your organic oasis. Lost Close Plant Therapy, healing and enhancing plant vitality. Unlock these exclusive deals with coupon code Organically Blunt at checkout. Until our next episode, stay connected and keep growing, and as always, stay organically blunt.